Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on something you probably think you already understand, maternal instinct.
Oh, yeah.
We're diving into Lucy Cooke's book, Bitch.
On the female of the species.
Okay.
Specifically chapter 6.
Right.
Where she explores what motherhood really looks like across the animal kingdom.
It's fascinating stuff because we often use this term maternal instinct to explain this seemingly automatic bond between mothers and their offspring.
Yeah.
But as we'll discover, it's a lot more nuanced than just some, magical connection.
Right.
It's not that simple.
Okay, so Cooke starts by bringing up Darwin's classic take on maternal instinct.
Yeah.
All about female tenderness and selflessness.
Right.
Basically, women are just hardwired to be caring moms.
Yeah, the classic view.
But then she shares her own experience with Mookies, an orphaned owl monkey she cared for in the Peruvian Amazon.
And what's interesting here is that Cooke, despite her background in zoology, actually struggled.
To feel that effortless maternal connection that we're so often told is just, inherent in females.
It's like, where's the manual for this? It should just kick in, right?
Exactly.
And get this, owl monkey fathers are actually the primary caregivers.
It's true.
They carry the infants a whopping 90% of the time.
Yeah, it's like
those dads who wear their babies in those front packs all the time.
That's a great analogy.
I know, right?
And this isn't just an owl-monkey quirk either. Paternal care is actually pretty common across the animal kingdom.
Oh, interesting.
Even the norm in many species. For example, in birds, 90% of couples share the parenting workload. And if we go even further back on the evolutionary tree to fish and amphibians, almost 2/3 of fish species have single dads doing all the parenting.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It's amazing.
It makes you wonder about all those assumptions we make about moms being the natural caregivers.
It really does.
Yeah. Do any specific examples from the book come to mind?
Well, Cooke talks about poison dart frogs.
Oh, cool.
They're these tiny, colorful amphibians.
Okay.
And the males are incredibly devoted parents.
Right.
They carry their tadpoles on their back, sometimes for days, to get them to a safe water source.
That's dedication.
I know.
So if paternal care is so widespread, what does that tell us about this idea of maternal instinct as like a female-only trait?
That's where the research gets really interesting.
Okay.
Cooke highlights the work of Lauren O'Connell at Stanford, who studied these very same poison dart frogs.
So she's looking at Jig.
She found that the exact same neural circuitry in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, specifically neurons expressing something called the neuropeptide galanin, are responsible for parental care in both male and female frogs.
So to break that down for our listeners,
the
hypothalamus is a region in the brain that controls a bunch of basic functions. And neuropeptides are basically chemical messengers that allow neurons to communicate.
Exactly.
So it's not that one sex is like hardwired for caregiving and the other isn't.
Right.
Both have the capacity.
Exactly.
It's just that in many species, one sex usually takes on the role.
Right, like a division of labor.
Yeah, kind of like how in some cultures, men are expected to be the breadwinners, even though women are perfectly capable of working too.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's not biology. It's just like cultural expectations.
Yeah, and this brings us to some groundbreaking research on mice by Catherine Dulac at Harvard.
Okay.
She was studying why virgin male mice can be so aggressive, sometimes even killing baby mice.
Yikes.
Not exactly father of the year material.
No, definitely not.
But here's the mind-blowing part.
Okay.
Dulac found that by stimulating those same galanin neurons in the hypothalamus, she could flip a switch, turning those killer males into doting dads.
Hold on. Are you telling me scientists can literally turn a mouse from a baby killer into a caring caregiver?
Yes.
Just by messing with their brains?
Yes. It's incredible, right?
That is wild.
And she did it using a technique called optogenetics.
Okay.
It's essentially using light to control specific neurons.
Wow.
And the transformation in these mice was almost instantaneous.
Oh, wow.
They started building nests, retrieving pups, grooming them, huddling protectively, all the classic signs of maternal care.
That is just, I'm trying to picture a tiny little laser pointer aimed at a mouse's brain.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Could they do the opposite?
You mean turn a nurturing mom into an infanticidal one?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Oh, wow.
Dulac found a separate group of neurons in the hypothalamus that control infanticidal behavior.
Okay.
Stimulating these neurons in female mice caused them to, sadly, turn on their pups.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's a fascinating and somewhat unsettling insight into the complex neural control of parenting.
Right.
We have this idea of mothers always being loving and protective, but clearly it's not that simple.
This is really making me question everything I thought I knew about motherhood.
I know, it's a lot to take in.
So both parental care and infanticide are basically deep-seated instincts, right?
It seems that way.
Both essential for species survival.
Mm-hmm.
But what triggers those instincts in the first place? Is there like some kind of signal?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Dulac believes it's a complex mix of internal and external cues.
Okay.
A cascade of hormones and environmental signals that ultimately determine whether the care or kill circuitry gets activated.
Wow.
And remember, this neural circuitry is believed to be shared by all vertebrates, including us humans.
Okay, now that's a thought I need to sit with for a minute.
It is pretty profound.
So both men and women have the potential for both nurturing and aggression.
It seems so.
And it's all about which neural pathways get activated.
Right.
Makes sense when you consider all the diverse parenting styles we see in humans, right? Not all mothers are naturally nurturing,
right,
and not all fathers are distant.
Exactly, and this leads us to another key figure in understanding motherhood, Jean Altman.
Oh yeah, the famous primatologist.
Yes.
I remember reading about her work.
Yeah, back in the 1960s, she and her husband set up a long-term study of baboons in Kenya.
Okay.
At the time, the prevailing view was that primate mothers were pretty much all the same.
Right.
And mainly focused on having babies and providing basic care.
Right, just the basics.
But Altman's research totally challenged that view.
How so? What did she discover that was so different?
She was the first to really quantify and analyze the evolutionary impact of mothers.
Yeah.
She brought in hard data and statistics to study primate behavior,
right,
focusing on mother-infant interactions, which, surprisingly, were often overlooked by male researchers at the time.
Interesting.
What she found was that baboon motherhood is a far more complex and challenging job than anyone had realized.
Okay, I'm hooked. What's life actually like for a baboon mom, then?
Imagine juggling a full-time job with childcare, but in a much more dangerous environment.
Okay.
Baboons are constantly on the move, looking for food, avoiding predators, and dealing with a very structured social hierarchy.
Yeah.
And through it all, mothers are carrying, nursing, and protecting their infants.
That sounds exhausting, not to mention dangerous. There are a lot of infant deaths?
Sadly, yes.
Oh, no.
Infant mortality rates in baboons are shockingly high. Up to 50% of infants die in the first year.
Wow.
Often due to starvation, predators, or even accidents or mishandling by other baboons.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
You mentioned a social hierarchy.
Yes.
How does that play into the challenges of motherhood?
The female baboon hierarchy is incredibly rigid.
Oh, okay.
High-ranking females, and this is passed down through the mother's line.
Oh, wow.
Have all the privileges.
Really?
They get the best food, better protection from predators, more social support.
It's like a stratified society.
It is.
Okay.
Low-ranking mothers, on the other hand, are constantly stressed and struggle to provide for their infants. It's like those communities where access to healthcare and good schools depends on your zip code.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's all about where you're born.
So being born into a good family matters a lot for a baboon.
It's crucial for survival and reproductive success.
Right.
In fact, high-ranking mothers tend to be more relaxed in their parenting style,
Right.
allowing their infants more freedom to explore and become independent.
Oh, interesting.
Low-ranking mothers, however, are constantly on edge,
Yeah, I can imagine.
keeping their infants close, which can actually hinder their development.
Oh, wow.
It's a perfect example of how social status shapes maternal behavior,
Yeah.
just like in humans, where socioeconomic factors can heavily influence parenting choices.
Right. It's not just about your genes.
Exactly.
It's about, like, your circumstances.
It's the whole picture.
This is really shifting my perspective on maternal instinct.
It's complicated, right?
Yeah, it's not this fixed thing at all.
No.
It's shaped by all sorts of factors,
Yeah.
including social dynamics
Mm-hmm.
and the environment.
Exactly.
But I have to ask, what about those darker sides of baboon society that Cooke talked about? Didn't she mention kidnapping?
Kidnapping is surprisingly common, yes.
Really?
High-ranking females, especially the younger ones, are often attracted to infants and will sometimes snatch them from their mothers.
Oh, that's just awful.
No, it's hard to believe.
Imagine the stress for those mothers.
Absolutely. Low-ranking mothers are in a constant state of anxiety,
Yeah.
always on guard.
Makes sense.
This chronic stress can affect their health
Right.
and even lead to depression.
Wow.
In some cases, it can even trigger something Cook calls misdirected maternal aggression.
Okay.
Remember those urocortin neurons we talked about earlier?
The ones that trigger infanticidal behavior.
Exactly.
Oh, so they're...
It's not typical in baboons,
Yeah.
but it does happen, especially among low-ranking mothers who are under extreme duress.
I see.
It's a harsh reminder that maternal instinct isn't always about love and care. Sometimes it's about survival.
Yeah.
And those choices can be brutal.
This is all so fascinating, but also kind of heartbreaking.
I know. It's tough to hear.
Is there any hope for these low-ranking mothers? Do they have any ways to improve their situation?
Well, Altman discovered that forming strong social bonds can make a big difference.
You mean like baboon friendships?
Exactly. Baboon friendships are built around grooming, which releases endorphins and reduces stress.
Okay.
Having a supportive network of friends can provide protection from aggression,
Right.
help with childcare.
It takes a village.
It does, and
Yeah.
even improve access to food.
So it's not just about family ties. It sounds like friendships are crucial for survival and well-being.
Exactly, it's all connected.
But what about controlling the sex of their offspring? Cook mentioned that baboons can do that, right?
That's one of Altman's most remarkable findings.
Okay, I'm interested.
She noticed that low-ranking mothers tend to have more sons,
Okay.
while high-ranking mothers have more daughters.
Why is that? What's the evolutionary advantage?
Well, remember, female rank is inherited.
Oh, right.
A low-ranking daughter is basically stuck in the same disadvantaged position as her mother.
Right, she can't really.
But male rank is more fluid.
Okay.
It's based on their ability to compete and climb the social ladder.
Oh, interesting.
A low-ranking son might be able to improve his status, maybe even mate into a higher-ranking family,
I see.
and pass on his genes.
So for a low-ranking mother, having more sons is like,
It's like playing the odds,
yeah.
increasing the chances that at least some of her offspring will escape poverty.
That's incredible. It's like they're unconsciously manipulating the system.
Exactly. And it highlights how much control mothers have over their reproductive destiny.
Wow.
They're making calculated choices,
Right.
even if those choices are driven by instinct.
So maternal instinct isn't just about nurturing.
Right.
It's about power, control,
Mm-hmm.
and adapting to a difficult situation.
It's all about survival.
But how do they actually manipulate the sex of their offspring? Do we know how that works?
The exact mechanism is still a bit of a mystery.
Okay.
Cook mentions that in some mammals, like kuipu and red deer, it involves something called strategic abortion.
Whoa, I had no idea that was even a thing in the animal kingdom.
It's actually more common than you might think.
Uh-huh.
For many animal mothers, abortion is an adaptive strategy,
Right.
a way to avoid wasting precious resources on offspring that are unlikely to survive.
Interesting.
It's a stark contrast to the pro-life narrative that often dominates human discussions of abortion.
This is blowing my mind.
It's a whole different perspective.
We've gone from cuddly owl monkey dads to baby-killing mice to strategic abortion in baboons.
It's a wild ride.
This is truly a deep dive into the realities of motherhood. Far more complex, nuanced, and even brutal than I ever imagined.
It's not what we're taught, is it?
But where do we go from here? What other insights does Cook offer?
Well, she takes us to the Isle of May in Scotland to study the hormonal basis of the mother-pup bond in gray seals. Oh, cool.
It's a fascinating look at the role of oxytocin,
Ah, oxytocin.
the cuddle hormone.
I'm ready for some warm fuzzies after all this talk of infanticide and kidnapping.
Well, oxytocin is definitely involved in bonding,
Right.
but it's not quite as simple as just feeling warm and fuzzy.
Oh, okay.
It also plays a vital role in the actual physical processes of motherhood, like birth and lactation.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Let's dive in. Cook focuses on the work of Kelly Robinson, who's been studying gray seals and the hormonal drivers behind the mother-pup bond.
Okay.
As you might guess, oxytocin plays a huge role.
Right, the cuddle hormone.
Well, it is, but it's more than just a warm, fuzzy cuddle session.
Okay, I had a feeling.
Oxytocin is essential for the physiological processes of motherhood. Like, it triggers uterine contractions during labor
Oh, wow.
and helps with milk ejection.
Okay.
And all of that triggers just this flood of oxytocin in the mother's brain,
So it's almost like,
essentially priming her for that instant bond with her newborn. It's like a built-in biological mechanism to get that connection going.
exactly.
It's fascinating. Right.
It's making me think about those, love at first sight moments people talk about.
Yeah.
Interesting parallel.
Yeah, maybe it's oxytocin?
And each time the pup nurses, it triggers another surge of oxytocin, strengthening that bond even further.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But didn't Cook mention that gray seals have a super short nursing period?
Yeah, they do.
Like barely any time compared to humans.
Exactly, only about 18 days.
Wow.
And during that time, the mother can't go back into the sea to feed, so she loses a ton of weight.
Oh, wow.
The pups, on the other hand, are growing like crazy, tripling in size.
So she's like starving herself basically to feed her pups.
It's a huge sacrifice, yeah.
That's intense. I can't imagine not eating for 18 days straight.
It's hard to fathom.
But what happens if that bond doesn't form properly during that critical time?
Well, that's where things get tricky. Robinson found that there's this tiny window just a few hours after birth that's crucial for bonding in gray seals.
Okay.
If the mother gets interrupted during that time, maybe she has to defend her pup from a predator or something.
Right. Yeah.
She might miss that crucial oxytocin surge, and the bond might not solidify.
So it's not as automatic as we might think.
It's not. There's a real vulnerability there.
It's kind of unsettling, actually. Like, what if something goes wrong during those first few hours?
Yeah, and the consequences can be devastating.
Right.
Robinson observed mothers who actually abandon their pups, which, sadly, often leads to starvation and death.
Oh, wow.
In fact, half of the pups that die on the Isle of May die because of abandonment.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is.
I guess it shows just how important that initial bonding period is.
Yeah, those first few hours are crucial.
But Robinson also found a link between oxytocin levels and pup survival, right?
Absolutely. Mothers with high oxytocin levels had pups with high oxytocin levels.
Okay.
And these pups were, get this, the fattest. Being well fed gives them a huge advantage when they have to learn to hunt on their own after being weaned.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like that initial bond fueled by oxytocin has lasting benefits for the pups, even beyond those first 18 days.
Exactly. And it might even influence the pup's future maternal behavior.
Oh, interesting.
Studies on rats have shown that offspring raised by attentive mothers with high oxytocin levels tend to be more attentive mothers themselves.
It's amazing how those early experiences can have such a powerful impact down the line.
It really is.
But how does all of this research on gray seals relate to us humans? Do we have a similar oxytocin rush after birth?
You know, Robinson believes this double feedback loop of oxytocin strengthening the bond between mother and offspring likely exists in humans as well.
Oh, interesting.
Studies have shown that human mothers who have a secure attachment to their babies have higher oxytocin levels.
Okay.
And their brains actually respond differently to their baby's cries.
Oh, wow.
It makes you wonder if interventions that boost oxytocin levels could help mothers who struggle to bond with their newborns,
Yeah.
maybe due to postpartum depression or other factors.
That's really thought-provoking.
It is.
So oxytocin, it's not just a cuddle hormone.
It's more than that.
It's a powerful driver of maternal care with consequences that ripple out over a lifetime.
Absolutely.
But is it the only factor in attachment?
That's a great question. Cooke reminds us not to give too much power to a single molecule.
Okay.
While oxytocin is undeniably important, it's not the whole story.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to say that.
There's more to it.
Yeah, what else is going on?
Thankfully, there's a second phase of attachment that kicks in later,
Okay.
separate from birth and lactation.
Okay.
And this phase can involve both mothers and fathers, as well as other caregivers.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah.
There's hope for those of us who might not get that initial oxytocin rush.
Exactly. Remember how Catherine Dulac triggered nurturing behavior in virgin female mice?
Yeah.
By stimulating those galanin neurons? Right.
She essentially bypassed the hormonal surges of pregnancy and lactation.
Right. So it's not all about hormones.
It's not, and this isn't just a lab rat phenomenon either.
Okay.
Adoption and fostering have been observed in over 120 mammal species.
Wow. Over 120.
It's amazing.
I'm starting to think we humans put way too much emphasis on that biological parent-child connection.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the concept of communal caregiving, which has evolved in many species to ease the burden on mothers.
Right. Cooke had some great examples of this, right? Didn't she talk about bats and giraffes sharing childcare duties?
Yes. Bats who can't fly with their pups clinging to them use communal nurseries.
Oh, wow.
And they even nurse each other's offspring.
Oh, that's so cool.
And giraffes form creches, basically leaving their young with a designated babysitter while they forage for food.
Okay.
And hunting mothers like wolves and wild dogs get help from other pack members who bring food back to the den for their pups.
It's like a prehistoric version of meal delivery services.
Exactly. It takes a village. I love those examples. It makes you wonder if it takes a village mentality as hardwired into us on some level.
It's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
It challenges that rugged, individualist ideal we often associate with parenthood, showing that cooperative breeding can be a successful, maybe even superior strategy.
Right. It's not all about, doing it all yourself.
Exactly.
Cooke also traveled to Madagascar to study a particularly fascinating primate.
Oh, yes.
The black and white ruffed lemurs.
Fascinating creatures.
I remember that part. They're the ones with the unusual nesting habits, right?
Yes. These lemurs are special because they have litters of up to 3 babies at once.
Wow.
Which is rare for primates.
Okay.
Most primate mothers can only handle 1 baby at a time because those big brains require years of intensive care.
I get it. All that brain power is high maintenance.
Yeah.
So how do these lemurs manage with multiple infants?
They've come up with an ingenious solution.
Okay.
They build communal nests high up in the trees where 2 or 3 mothers pool their resources and share a nest.
Oh.
And get this. Sometimes both mothers will go off to forage, leaving their babies in the care of another lemur,
Okay.
who's often a friend rather than a relative.
Wait, so they're literally co-parenting with their friends?
They are. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
It is. Andrea Baden, the researcher who studied these lemurs, thinks these strong social bonds are essential to their success.
Right.
These mothers spend tons of time hanging out, strengthening those friendships, and building trust, which is obviously crucial when you're entrusting your babies to someone else.
Yeah, it's like they're creating their own little support system.
It is.
Makes me think of those, neighborhood babysitting co-ops.
Exactly. It's all about community.
And this brings us to Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy's theory that communal caregiving was a key driver in the evolution of human intelligence and social behavior.
Ah, Hrdy, a brilliant mind.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of her work. I'm eager to hear how she connects all of this to human evolution.
So Hrdy argues that human babies, with their huge brains and prolonged helplessness, couldn't have evolved without significant help from others.
Right. They need a lot of care.
It takes a lot of time and energy to raise a human child, even compared to other primates.
Yeah, definitely.
She suggests that our ancestors relied on a whole network of caregivers,
Okay.
fathers, grandmothers, aunts, older siblings to share the responsibility of childcare.
So instead of the classic, man the hunter bringing home the bacon,
Right.
it was more like a collaborative effort.
Like a village.
Everyone pitching in to raise the kids.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense to me, actually.
It's a different way of looking at human evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And Hrdy goes even further, proposing that this cooperative environment actually favored the development of those traits we consider uniquely human.
Like what?
Like empathy,
Okay.
cooperation,
Yeah.
and our ability to understand what others are thinking.
Wow, that's a really compelling argument.
It is.
It totally challenges the idea that human evolution was driven solely by competition and dominance.
Right. It's not just about survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it's more nuanced than that.
It's about cooperation and community.
And it shines a light on the crucial role that mothers and other caregivers played in making us who we are today.
Absolutely. It's a team effort.
I feel like I've had a total brain upgrade listening to all of this.
It's a lot to take in.
We've gone from the neural wiring of mice to the social dramas of baboons, to the hormonal intricacies of gray seals, and even those amazing lemur co-op nurseries.
It's been quite a journey.
It's clear that maternal instinct is way more complicated than we usually give it credit for.
It's not a simple on-off switch.
No, not at all.
It's this dynamic interplay of biology, environment, and social factors, and it shows up in so many different ways.
Right.
From fierce protection to, in some cases, strategic abandonment.
It's a lot to process, honestly.
It is.
But where does this leave us, the human listeners, trying to figure out our own experiences and expectations of motherhood?
Right.
What are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Maybe the most important takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all prescription for how to be a mother.
Okay.
Maternal instinct exists on a spectrum, and it's shaped by individual circumstances, societal pressures, and our evolutionary history.
There's something really liberating about that, isn't there?
It is.
It takes the pressure off this idealized notion of the perfect, selfless mother.
The supermom myth.
Yeah, and acknowledges all the messy realities and difficult choices that mothers face,
Exactly.
both human and animal.
Motherhood is complex.
And it broadens the conversation to include fathers and other caregivers.
Right. It's not just a mom thing.
The capacity to nurture and protect isn't just for those who give birth.
Absolutely.
So if maternal instinct isn't this fixed universal force, how does that change our thinking about parenting in general?
It challenges everything we thought we knew.
gender roles, and even our own evolution.
It forces us to question those deep-seated assumptions about what it means to be a good mother, or even just a good parent.
Right?
It reminds us there's no single right way to raise a child, and success can look many different ways.
I think that's important to remember.
It is.
It also challenges that traditional narrative that men are biologically programmed to be providers and protectors.
Yeah, the classic stereotype.
While women are the natural nurturers.
We've seen that caregiving is a shared capacity present in both sexes across so many species.
Absolutely. Recognizing this shared capacity has profound implications for how we structure our families and societies.
It does.
It opens up possibilities for more balanced childcare responsibilities, allowing both men and women to fully participate in the joys and challenges of raising the next generation.
It's about sharing the load.
And maybe, as Hardy suggests, a more communal approach to caregiving could lead to more empathy and cooperation within our communities.
That's the hope.
That's something we could definitely use more of in the world today. I love that. So to all our listeners out there, take this knowledge and think about your own experiences and observations of parenting.
Reflect on what you've learned.
How have societal expectations shaped your views?
Yeah, think about it.
What examples of diverse parenting styles have you seen?
It's all around us.
And how can we, as individuals and as a society, create a more supportive and inclusive environment for all parents and caregivers?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is. And here's one final question to ponder.
Okay.
If maternal instinct isn't a fixed universal force, but rather a fluid and adaptable response to a range of internal and external cues, what does this mean for the potential of all humans, regardless of gender, to nurture, protect, and ultimately help shape the next generation?
That's something to think about.
It is.